Block number 2 is a broken 9 patch. A broken 9 patch means that we just make a 9 patch and we cut it into 4 sections and put it back together. So let's get started. I am using, for my 9 patch, the creams on the outside of a green so that these will remain a full block right here. And then in the center here, I'm using the purple and the green on the outside. I have cut each one of these strips 1 7/8 inches. That way we have enough give to be able to cut the square in half. All right, now I'm going to sew my strips together. I'm using that 1/4 inch seam that I found earlier, but I want to make sure that that's lining up the way I want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and sew one strip and make sure that I'm measuring what I need to measure to begin with. So I have my strips set here. I'm going to measure this just to make sure I don't need to increase or decrease my 1/4 inch seam allowance. My seam allowance looks great now, so I'm going to go ahead and cut and sew my other strip pack. Notice that I did my stripes going in that direction so that I didn't have to worry about the illusion of stripes going up and down. So when you have directional fabric, pay attention to how you want that directional fabric to flow in your quilt. So now that I have the outside and the inside, I'm going to iron. Since this is the outside of my 9 patch, I'm going to iron my seams to the outside. And I'm going to do the opposite with the inside. So this is my inside block. So I'm going to go to the inside. These broken 9 patches need to be cut at 1 7/8. So I'm going to start by trimming the very end. So I have a straight edge on the very end. Then I'm going to turn it over and I am going to follow the vertical line over here. The nice thing is that these rulers have the 7/8 or on there, so you can just follow that right on. So I've got 1 7/8, and I'm going to strip as many as I can. I'm able to get 4 here, so I'm going to get 2 here to create 2 broken 9 patches. Again, I'm lining up here with the vertical line, getting myself a nice straight edge at the bottom, and then lining up at the 7/8 mark, as well as with a vertical line. I can get 2 broken 9 patches out of these squares, so I'm going to chain piece. I'm starting with this one, and because I ironed them with the outers out and the inners in, all I have to do is nest these 2 seams and put them into the machine. Chain piecing saves on thread and time. With 9 patches, once I get through with these, the seam allowance wants to just go to the outside, and I just let it. So I'm going to give these a nice iron, and then we're going to cut them in half both ways. I want to make sure that I cut directly in the center of my square so that I can trim later. So I'm going to my center block, and I have marked my center, and I'm going to do that for each one. So I'm looking at my green block. I'm finding the center of that green block and marking the center. Okay, so this 9 patch has not been squared yet. So I am going to estimate that it is 2 1/4 from the edge. But to double check that I'm in the center, I went ahead and made a marking point on the center of my blocks. And now I can line up the center of my center blocks and cut. The nice thing about the turntable is that I can turn it this way and always cut away from me. So the broken 9 patch usually has where you turn it around and you sort of make a center in here. So you can play with this however you want to in figuring out how you want your patches to go. I'm going to go with my corners on the outside, leaving me with a nice little design in the center. And so now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew it up. The nice thing about the broken 9 patch is that I get these nice little itty bitty squares and rectangles without having actually cut them. And I can chain piece them very nicely. So I'm not even ironing, I'm simply finger pressing a little bit, making sure that my design is going in the direction that I want to, putting the bottom on top, making sure that my center seam is nesting and that my ends are lining up. Now I'm going to press them open and you can see how we've got these little pieces that we didn't even try for. So we have a mini without trying. All right, and this one, the reason why it wasn't laying flat is because my seams weren't going the right direction. So there we go. So now I'm going to square these up so that they are the 4 inches. All right, so I have lined up the center straight through the middle of my square and going to the opposite end. I'm using the diagonal line here, going through the center to make a diamond. And I'm using the center 2-inch mark here on my squaring ruler so I can go through the center there as well. I like to go ahead and square every single block once I get through with a section. So since this is block 2, I'm squaring every single block 2 and getting ready for block 3. Block 2 is done. Nice little minis right here without even trying.